Hello everyone, welcome back to another book review. Today I am going to be reviewing the book Guards by Terry Pratchett. Now, Terry Pratchett, I have read a lot of his works. I love his stuff. I love his style of writing. I love his fantasy series. I think it's wonderful. I tend to reach for Terry Pratchett when I'm in the library and I don't know what I want to read in the fiction section. I'm wandering around, I can't really find anything that's sparking my interest. I don't know if anyone else has this problem. I'll go to the library and I know I want to read something. And this happens more with fiction. Well, it happens both with fiction and nonfiction. And I'll just be wandering around and I'm like, I know I want to read something, but I can't, nothing's like coming off the shelves at me. If that makes sense. Like I'm looking, because the way I go to the library, I just like wander around and I find stuff that's interesting. Sometimes I have a running list of things that I want to grab or topics I want to read about, especially in the nonfiction section. And I do have some fiction to read lists that need to be worked through, but most of the time I just go there, wander around, pull some stuff off that looks interesting, and call it good. So when I get into a mood where I'm at the library, I know I want to read fiction, I'm in the fiction section, I've been wandering around for like 20 minutes and not a single book calls to me, go right to Terry Pratchett's section, pull one off, because I always know it's going to be a good read. I think the lowest I've ever rated one of his books is a 3-star. I want to say it was Snuff, maybe? But and that was one. Most of them are 4 or 5 stars. And that's why I always gravitate towards his books, because I know it's going to be a great read if I can't really find anything else in the fiction section that's calling me. But on the same note, sometimes I go to that same fiction section of the library and I need to remove myself from it because I'm taking 10 or 12 books off the shelf and I don't have time to read 10 or 12 books that week. So it's all just a matter of what I'm feeling that day. This week, I had books I wanted to take out of the fiction section, but I forgot to make my list before I went to the library. So I wound up forgetting what I needed to get, so I just went and grabbed this book. And this was actually a book that I've been wanting to read for a while, so I don't know if all of Terry Pratchett, a lot of the stuff that I read is all set in the Discworld universe. And you can really kind of start with whatever book you want. There are better starting points in the series, and I've read quite a bit. It's all interconnected, but there are storylines you can follow. So this Guards was the first book in the City Watch series. It's City Watch or Captain Vines. I don't know what the storyline is called, but it's focusing on the like City Watch, the Night Watch in the city. That's the key feature in this series. I've read some other stuff in the City Watch sub-series of the Discworld series, if that makes sense, but I hadn't started at the beginning, and I've heard that this one was good. My sister, who also loves Terry Pratchett, told me, you gotta read Guards, so I think maybe I want to read through the City Watch section, or I don't know how to explain it, the City Watch series, which is like inside this bigger series, because I just like the City Watch, the characters in it. It's great. I also need to read through Weird Sisters. There's like these witches. There's another sub-series that follows these witches, and I've read like 2 of them in that sub-series. I'm not making much sense. Anyways, I needed to read through all the City Watch, and I thought starting with this book, which is like the beginning of all these characters you know and love, starts. After this long convoluted intro, you can finally get to talking about the book. So at the beginning of this one, we meet Carrot. Carrot is a dwarf, kind of. He has dwarf parents. He lives in a mine underground outside the city. He's a proper dwarf, except that he wasn't actually born to his parents. His parents stumbled across a highway thievery of a caravan gone wrong, and there was a little baby who was the only survivor. So they said, we'll take him home and we'll raise him. The problem is Carrot is now 6'4" and isn't actually a dwarf, as they're finding out. So the beginning of this book is Carrot's parents breaking the news to him, hey, you're not actually a dwarf. We think maybe you should go out and like explore the world with the people that look like you, but we're not like kicking you out. We just think it might be good for you in your development. Carrot's kind of upset about this. He has some dwarf girlfriend, kind of. I say kind of because there's a point in this book where they say gender's kind of optional for dwarves. Yeah. Uh, some other dwarf he's interested in. It's vaguely implied that she's female. He's looking to get with her, but she's less enthused, probably because he's not actually a dwarf. So his parents are like, hey, we know that in this city that's a ways away, there's this city watch, and it's this very noble job, and you really have to apply to get in, and you can do great noble deeds for the city. Oh, it's so good. It's going to be honorable, and it's really going to be a crowning achievement if you can get in, and you can have a wonderful career there doing good for the city. Carrot is very idealistic. He's very young. He's very naive, and he sets off for the big city as this naive little dwarf. And he shows up at this. His parents write a letter in advance, which are like, speaking on behalf of Carrot, hopefully he can get accepted into the City Watch. You really hope he can take a position and prove himself. Little does everyone know from this rural community that the City Watch has kind of changed in nature. There are now 3 people in it. There used to be 4. The 4th one recently passed away. We have Captain Sam Vines, who's kind of in charge of it. We have Nobby, we have, I think it's Colin, and there's a 4th person who recently died. So we're down to 3, and it's basically where people who annoy other people get sent. It's not really a good job, it's a job that you hopefully never have to have, and they do the least amount of work possible, and everyone there kind of hates their life and is a mess. So when Carrot shows up and wants to join them, they don't really know what to do. Additionally, he has taken upon himself to read all the rules and regulations, which it sounds like no one else in the City Watch has even attempted to undertake. So basically, we have this young, naive, eager, idealistic recruit in a group of cranky men who don't want to be doing their job. And it's kind of Carrot and his insertion into this group and the way it changes the group. Additionally, because there's always secret societies in this city. One of the secret societies has decided that a good idea is summoning a dragon, as you do, and it kind of just goes terribly. The course of the story is then Carrot getting into the City Watch, working with the City Watch, the transformation of the City Watch because of Carrot, and then also this whole dragon thing that's taking over. As I mentioned before, this is a 5-star book. I think characters really, really shine in this. I have read other books in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, and there's a lot of interconnection, I should say. If you've read any of these books, you know that, like, you see these characters in all the other books. So I've seen Sam Vines before. I've seen Carrot before. One thing that I was really surprised is I never understood the backstory of Carrot. He was just always someone on the watch. So now that I know his backstory, and I am in love with him. He is probably one of my favorite Discworld characters. Now I want to reread some of these other books to see, like, hey, can I see that personality of Carrot poking through? Because in other situations when you're interacting with the watch, Sam Vimes really comes out. Where in this book, Sam Vimes is kind of a mess, for lack of a better word. Sounds like he's had some recent heartbreaks with women. He has no self-confidence. He drinks to forget everything. He's very cynical. And I think that Terry Pratchett kind of changed Sam Vimes' character as he went along, and I think that's okay. I think it's just Sam Vimes changed as a person as he went along, because his character in this book is very different from the character that I've received him to be in other books. In this book, he's kind of a mess, and Carrot really shines in this book, so I'd love to see if any of that personality of Carrot shows through in any of the other books. So I'm going to keep reading the series to see kind of how that plays out, because again, Carrot was the feature in this. Sam Vimes was kind of like a secondary character of the watch group. Like, it was Carrot was kind of the most important in this book, and then you had the other 3 guys doing their thing. The other character who I think really shines in this book is another one of my favorite in the series, and that is Lord Vetinari, or the Patrician. At one point in this series, the Patrician is locked in his own dungeon, which is not the first time the Patrician has been arrested or locked in his own dungeon. Actually, the last Terry Pratchett book I read, The Truth, I think it was The Truth, Lord Vetinari winds up being arrested. So this is not an uncommon situation for him to find himself in, but I I just love his whole vibe, his whole character, and I think the way Terry Pratchett wrote him is just genius. I really like the way he's portrayed. I like the way that he's always in control of the situation, even when there's a dragon ravaging the city. I was laughing out loud when we reached the point where you see him in his dungeon, just living his life, reading. He has an army of rats taking care of him for some reason. I think Lord Vetinari really shines in this book as well. And between Lord Vetinari and Carrot, um, and then all the supporting, I'm gonna call them supporting characters, I don't really know what to say. All the people, so you have like Lord Vetinari and Carrot. Carrot's really the feature of this book. He really is the key person in this book. And then Lord Vetinari, I feel like his role isn't as big in the book, but his character really shines in this book. Terry Pratchett did an excellent job portraying him, but I feel like he always does a really good job of portraying him. The one thing that I will say that wasn't a surprise in this book, which had nothing to do with this book, if I had read everything in Discworld in an appropriate order, I wouldn't have probably caught this. I knew who the bad guy was, for lack of a better term, just because, like I said before, there's a lot of overlap in the Discworld series. So I knew that there was a role in the city that was filled by someone else in future books. And so when I was like, this person is going to die, or he is the person in question who will probably have consequences for these actions that he's taking. That, yeah, so I kind of pieced things together and I was like, oh, I bet it's that person who's kind of doing some of these bad things that we're seeing in the city right now, just because I know that that position is filled by someone else in the future. However, if you have not read Discworld, I don't actually know. This might be a good entry point if you haven't read any of Terry Pratchett before. I don't know if it's the best entry point. You can look up things online which will tell you some good ways to enter his universe and get started. Like I said, there's not really an official order, I don't think. Don't quote me. I don't think there's an official order. I just kind of started reading. I started with Small Gods. Small Gods doesn't really connect to a lot of other stuff, but it does give you a good introduction to the world. This one, because it's #1 in a sub-series, I think would also be a really good starting point, and I think you get to see, you get an introduction to some of the key characters who are going to be in almost every single other book, and you get a really good introduction to Lord Vetinari, who's very important throughout the entire series. So yeah, this was a 5-star read. I enjoyed reading this book. I had a blast. Sad it's over, but I'm going to find the book #2 in the City Watch series because I'm excited to see how Sam Vimes develops as his character. We see a little bit of character development in this book, but I would love to see how he gets from where he is here to where I know him in other books. There is a big gap still to cover, and I'd love to see that get covered, and I'd love to just see more of Carrot. I didn't know I liked him this much. In all the other books, like I was saying, he was just kind of another person on the watch. But now that I know his backstory, I love it. I'm in love. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book and I highly recommend it. It's another 5-star read from me. If you have read this book, if you like this book, if you have other thoughts on this book, please let me know. I'd love to hear it. I love talking about this universe. I think it's a really good fantasy universe. So let me know what you think. Anyways, everyone, have a great day.